Come on! Yo, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the world, I am George Massey and I just went to see in the cinema on the big screen their finest. And let me tell you, I hope it is not this studio's finest, because it ain't very good. In fact, it's not good. In fact, it feels like television. In fact, it doesn't feel like good television. Now, it is not an awful film, but it is certainly not a particularly good film. It is bland, it is tepid, it is kind of like the equivalent of weak tea. Perhaps there is something in that, considering it is supposed to be so quintessentially English. But it is lacking in strength, it is lacking in a visceral edge that it could do with. I was quite excited about this film. I like the trailers. I'm interested in stories about writers because I like to write. I love to write, actually. And I was thinking, this isn't how you write. This isn't the process of writing. You've got three characters in the film, two men, one woman, all sharing an office, writing together. And it seems to take them forever to get anything out.
What experience did you have with screenwriting before taking on this role?
None.
And the female character who I was hoping to root for, don't get me wrong, I liked her, she's likeable, she's attractive, that helps. Probably the best thing about the film is her. She is a likeable character.
I thought it was a secretarial post.
Well, for God's sake, keep that to yourself.
But not necessarily a well-rounded character. The trailer was pushing the story as if it was all about this woman who was being repressed and she had a desire to express herself in writing, but mainstream studios didn't want to put a woman's name on the credits. They didn't want to pay a woman to write films, and I thought this is an interesting story because obviously there have been countless successful, wonderful female writers going back to Jane Austen, Mary Shelley, who created Frankenstein, and I forget her name, but Gone with the Wind, the great masterpiece, which is a beautifully written novel. My God, it's wonderful, and that's also written by a woman, though I can't remember her name. So I thought, well, interesting that women were repressed writing for cinema, but that's not really what the story's about. That's more just a scene in the film. And the rest of the movie is just sort of like three people trying to write a film whilst the war is happening and London's getting bombed. And everything else is a bit soap opera. She has this writer who she's writing with, her male co-star, and in the beginning I thought he was good and likeable, and very quickly he's not very likeable. It feels like the actor is really making an effort to be very cool, and it's like the actor didn't want to play a nervous, shy, insecure chap who can't get a woman, which is actually what that character is, and that's what that character is supposed to be. And it would have been a much better character if he was somewhat insecure and awkward, but perhaps a good writer. This happens all the time. You get people, men, who are terrible with women, but are good at expressing themselves in another means. So, for example, the guy can't get the girl, so he goes home and he paints. And he paints beautiful images because he cannot express himself in love. Or maybe he expresses himself in music, or he expresses himself in writing. And this character, he isn't supposed to be a great writer, but there could have at least been this balance and believability to his character, his personality. Instead it just felt legitimately like the actor was like, I don't want to play a nervous, awkward, shy, insecure twit. I want to play some guy who's really cool, who smokes cigarettes, and he's like, oh, trust me, everything's fine, I'm marvellous, I've got loads of women, I've got no troubles in my life, everything's perfect. He kind of plays it a bit like that. He plays it like he's fucking rolling in chicks. And it really is a negative conflict, because you're sort of thinking, wait a minute, I thought this guy was sort of hip and cool and confident, and then it's like, oh, actually he's insecure, and oh, he really is in love with her. Oh, like none of that was clear.
Not the girls.
Not the girls.
No. Johnny.
Johnny?
Is there an echo in here?
Why him?
And then when their relationship starts to kind of come together, it's just not believable at all. It's literally like, I was like, she wouldn't like him. It's not convincing. There's a kind of semi-intimate moment, and I just sort of thought, like, I can just see them acting here. You know, they're really, really acting, and it's, yeah, it's kind of annoying. The rest of the cast are good. I even think, honestly, that the actor who plays the guy is a good actor. I just think that the director let him do what he wanted, and the director should have said to him, no, you're not playing this part quite right. I want you to play it more like this. Somebody who's a little bit more well-rounded, who's not a kind of cartoon caricature of a character. One-dimensional. The director should have said to him, play it a little bit more nuanced and interesting. On top of that, the camera work is, for the most part, very bland. It opened very well. I thought, oh, this looks nice. But then not so much. And oh, one of the worst things about the film, oh, it's so bad. Every once in a while, the girl imagines what the film is going to be like. She pictures the film that they're writing, and it just looks awful. I just sort of thought, if this is what's going on in her imagination, she must be the worst writer in the history of the world. Because when you write, you get to imagine anything at all, whether you're writing a story or a film. Your imagination is absolutely limitless, and the stuff this girl is imagining is like, oh my god, this is the extent of somebody else's imagination. If this is as far as her imagination reaches, no way am I going to root or support this character to be a successful writer. It just looks awful. And the terrible thing is, it's trying to look like old films. It's trying to look like the old sort of wartime cinema. But the thing is, a lot of that stuff looks fucking amazing. Like, you go back and watch some of those films, this movie actually begins with a real film from that time period, and I was sitting there thinking, wow, that looks amazing. Look at the film, look at the black and white, look at the beauty of it, look at the lighting, look at the aesthetic, look at the way it's shot. It looks absolutely tremendous. And then you get their attempt to create that in this film, and it looks like a fucking joke. It looks awful. I was thinking, my god, would it have been the hardest thing in the world to have just bought some film stock and shot it for real, actually shot it on film? They could have afforded it. They had a $9 million budget. They only needed to do it for like 2 or 3 scenes, right? One day of shooting probably would have gotten enough film so that it actually looks like they were making a real old film, and it wouldn't have been this sort of horrendously jarring thing, which was almost like a joke, like, oh, look at how old films used to look. And it's like, well, not only did they used to look beautiful an awful lot, but they looked better than the way you are depicting them, and they looked better than your entire movie, right? You go back and watch, well, you don't have to watch Citizen Kane, you can literally just watch the opening of this film, which is film, and it looks remarkable, because oftentimes those old classic films do look remarkable. Anyway, it's not a very good film. I can't say that I recommend it. Even the story is not as interesting as I would have hoped. It seems as if the director really doesn't even understand the medium of cinema very well, especially in his interpretation of classic cinema from the time period he's working in. Ultimately, it just leaves you a bit like, meh, okay, that was a film. What I would say, as a juxtaposition, is if you want to see something that is similar to this, that's very good and very interesting, there is an anime, manga, Japanese series, it's only, I think, 13 episodes long, called Emma, okay, and it's about an English maid set in England in the 18th century, I believe. It's been a long time since I've seen it. But even though it's Japanese, it gets England, London, so good. It's so beautiful, and the love story in that is so compelling, it's so intriguing, and it's so kind of subtly done. It's so well controlled, it's so well crafted. So if you want to see something kind of like this, that is really good, that you've probably never heard of, you want a new, fresh, interesting experience, watch the anime series Emma. Just watch the first one, 20 minutes, and see if you don't want to watch the second. Anyway, that's it for this review. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because let's face it, what channel on YouTube is better than this one? None, right? Obviously.